the administration's response to the Libya attack?
The Independent Accountability Review Board is already hard at work, looking at everything, not cherry-picking, one story here or one document there, but looking at everything, which I highly recommend as the appropriate approach to something as complex as an attack like this.
Former Secretary of State Condoleeza Rice once held Secretary Clinton's job. Secretary Rice, thank you for joining us. And tell me, what do you think of the State Department's response to Libya?
Well, clearly, I want to start by saying that the emails and everything else just show again that our diplomats are in very dangerous places, and it reminds us that people like Ambassador Chris Stevens give the last full measure on behalf of their country, and so that's the first thing to remember. Secondly, the Accountability Review Board, to which the Secretary responded, will indeed take a look at whether or not the preparations were adequate given what was known about the intelligence picture. I myself have received reports from accountability review boards, and that will be the purpose of those investigations. There's then the issue of what intelligence agencies, people on the ground, did or did not know about what was going on. And there, I know that Chairman Mike Rogers wants the intelligence committees to look at questions of what the intelligence committees knew, what the intelligence community knew, how they communicated that to policymakers, and that's the appropriate venue for that discussion.
If there's a problem at a U.S. embassy, just a general course, and I realize that each incident is unique, but if there is a problem in an embassy, what happens first? Is there some sort of protocol that the embassy notifies the State Department? What's the process?
Well, clearly there is notification to the State Department through the Operations Center that there is trouble at an embassy, and then the Operations Center will try to ascertain what is happening, will notify the relevant officials. So there is a protocol. But when things are unfolding very, very quickly, it's not always easy to know what is really going on the ground. And to my mind, the really important questions here are about how information was collected. Did the various agencies really coordinate and share intelligence in the way that we had hoped with the reforms that were made after 9/11. So there's a big picture to be examined here, but we don't have all of the pieces, and I think it's easy to try and jump to conclusions about what might have happened here. It's probably better to let the relevant bodies do their work.
If there were, let's say, if there's an attack on an embassy, though, it says it goes to relevant officials, that the Operations Center would make that determination. Would that be, if there's something violent going on at an embassy, would you expect that to go all the way up to the Secretary of State and beyond?
Well, I think that it would, but under the circumstances, I can't tell you where the information was passed. Probably with an attack of this magnitude, it would have gotten to the very highest officials. But the problem is, when there is a fog of war like this, there are a lot of competing stories coming in, there's a lot of competing information coming in, and it takes a little while to know precisely what has happened.
If there were a problem here at Fox, I've been here 11 years, I'd probably say, well, the first thing I'd want to know is I want to look at certain logs or certain protocols or something that's sort of unique to Fox. If you were investigating this and you wanted to know what happened, would you look at an email trail, or what is sort of internal to our diplomatic procedures that you would look for?
Well, I think that the Accountability Review Board will want to look at what the embassy was communicating about the situation on the ground, what the State Department was doing in response to the communication about what was going on the ground, and not just what happened that particular night, but what signs there were of trouble earlier on, what did the intelligence picture look like, because you can't simply keep your diplomats in a bunker. They have to get out and do their work. But you want to make certain that you're taking the right safety precautions for them as well, and that's the kind of work that the Accountability Review Board will do. But there are protocols in place. I have no reason to believe that they weren't followed, but it is not very easy in circumstances like this to know precisely what's going on as it's unfolding.
All right, I want to ask you about the women vote, but one more question on Libya. I'm just sort of curious because I have no sort of sense of this. Yeah, for instance, let's take how many emails would you expect in a given day from a consulate in a troubled area? Just so I have sort of a universe. I realize that nothing is perfectly anticipated, but is it 10? Is it 100? I mean, how big is the traffic?
Well, it would be a lot, and not just emails, but cables from the embassies as well, maybe even phone calls from the embassies. I'm quite certain that when circumstances like this are unfolding, there is a lot of information flowing in, and it's flowing in very rapidly. It's flowing in from multiple sources. And I want to emphasize again, Greta, one of the problems we had with 9/11 and that we sought to fix was the coordination between all of the various agencies that would have been reporting on something like this. The intelligence agencies back in Washington, the intelligence agencies on the ground, what was being reported from the Tripoli embassy as opposed to the consulate that was under attack. And we worked very hard to make sure that all of this was shared, put together in a way that policymakers could use it. Now, I think Chairman Rogers will want to look at whether or not this is indeed working, and we have to make sure that it's working. But that's really the question that's on my mind, is how good was the coordination, and did all of those changes that we made after 9/11 really serve us well?
Okay, you've been out on a campaign trail with the Republican ticket. I'm curious, there appears to be, at least the polls say, show a gender gap. The women vote. Do you ever thought about this gender gap?
Well, the polls certainly show a gender gap, but I will tell you, when I go out and I talk to women across the country,